All right, let's jump right in. Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new explainer. Today, we're unpacking a corner of the internet that is just deeply, deeply moving. I mean, we spend so much of our time endlessly scrolling through social media, usually looking for a quick laugh, breaking news, maybe some life hacks. But have you ever actually stopped to think about how we process our deepest, most painful emotions online? Like, how do we literally visualize grief in a digital space? Well, today we're decoding a very specific emotional narrative, a massive viral TikTok trend that honestly just perfectly captures the agony of a broken heart. We're going to explore exactly how we process heartbreak online, and specifically, we're zeroing in on how visuals are used to completely enhance and elevate these emotional narratives. Just think about the sheer weight of this phrase for a second. The poetic reflection of life's hardest moments. We are definitely not talking about simple sad face emojis here. The content we're looking at today literally plunges the viewer into a very specific atmosphere of sorrow. It's an entire mood. It's a whole environment. When people go through intense separation or they're dealing with the bitter fallout of a failed relationship, words alone sometimes just aren't enough, right? So people are turning to digital platforms to find a visual and poetic mirror to their own internal pain. This isn't just reading a sad poem. It's stepping into a digital space that perfectly reflects the absolute hardest moments of life.
So let's get into Section 1. The Stare-Juan phenomenon.
To really understand how this builds into such a massive digital phenomenon, we have to look specifically at an incredibly popular Urdu TikTok trend built around this concept called Stare-Juan. Now, what is that? It's basically the literal and emotional depiction of heartbreak, separation, and sorrow. We're not talking about a vague feeling of being a little down. This trend is dedicated entirely to visually and poetically representing the bitter experiences of failed relationships and that deep, crushing agony of the heart. The creators behind these videos are essentially curating grief. They're taking that raw, invisible feeling of a broken heart and transforming it into a piece of digital art that anyone scrolling by can immediately recognize and feel in their gut.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of a Broken Heart. So how exactly do they craft such a successful, gut-wrenching emotional video? Because it absolutely doesn't just happen by accident. It is meticulously crafted and it relies on three distinct ingredients working perfectly together. First, you've got short, impactful poetic lines. Look, in the fast-paced world of TikTok, you do not have time for a 10-page poem. The words have to strike the heart immediately. Second, there's the emotional background music, which totally sets the subconscious tone. But the third element, and this is what really brilliantly illustrates our main focus for today, is visual symbolism, or an Urdu Basri symbolism. It's this visual element that synthesizes the whole shebang. The imagery chosen by the creator acts as an anchor. It takes the abstract pain of the poetry and gives it a literal physical form on your screen, plunging you, the viewer, into a profound, undeniable state of empathy and grief.
Which brings us to Section 3, Visualizing Emotional Pain.
This is where we really see how visuals completely enhance the emotional narratives we consume online. Consider the sheer power of silent scenes, or Khamosh Manazir. The source material specifically points out how these creators use silent visual cues to drastically deepen the viewer's emotions. Just think about that for a second. In a medium that is entirely driven by sound and text, the silence of a visual scene is what actually carries the most weight. Picture a shot of rain hitting a window pane, or an empty chair, or maybe just a solitary walk down a dark street. These silent scenes prove that what is shown is just as important, if not way more important, than the poetic words being spoken. The visuals do the heavy lifting here, allowing the viewer's own personal memories to fill in the blanks.
And look, we know exactly what these viewers are looking for. These are translated search keywords directly from our source material: heartbreaking poetry, Urdu emotional video, verses of separation. When someone opens up their app and types these exact words into the search bar, they are definitely not looking for a quick distraction. They are on a mission. They're actively hunting for visual and emotional triggers. They are specifically seeking out that perfect combination of visual symbolism and poetry to help them process their own feelings of separation.
All of this naturally leads us to a pretty fascinating question. Who exactly is watching this stuff? Like, who sits down after a long day and intentionally searches for the digital anatomy of a broken heart? Let's find out in Section 4, Finding Comfort in Community.
When we break down the demographic data, this really fascinating pattern emerges. What starts as this super lonely search for sad videos actually transforms into a powerful form of digital empathy. So you've got Urdu-speaking audiences, and they are seeking out these emotional visual scenes. Then you have fans of sad poetry, right? They're hunting for deep, touching verses. But most importantly, you have people who are actively experiencing heartbreak, and they are searching for solace from those bitter relationship experiences.
The big takeaway here is that these viewers are not passive, not at all. They're in pain, and they are actively looking for a visual and poetic mirror to their internal emotional state. Because honestly, seeing your pain visualized by someone else just makes you feel a little less alone.
And that leads us to Section 5, the power of shared grief.
So how does this incredibly individual, isolating feeling of a broken heart turn into an actual community? Well, it happens through a very specific user engagement loop. Step 1, watch and observe the visual symbolism. You just take in those silent scenes. Step 2, feel the emotional depth. You let the combination of the music, the imagery, and the poetry totally wash over you. And then Step 3, which is the call to action. Share your favorite lines in the comments. By using the hashtag #StareDrawWand, this trend literally unites thousands of isolated, lonely people into a shared digital space. You watch a video about Heartbreak, you go down to the comments, and suddenly, bam, you see hundreds of other people who are feeling the exact same visual resonance that you are.
This highlights such a powerful contrast. Individual pain versus shared poetic experience. A deeply personal, incredibly lonely experience of separation is actually being processed and ultimately healed through collective engagement with these highly visual poetic videos. The visual scenes serve as this universal language. Even if your specific heartbreak is completely different from mine, the visual symbolism of an empty room or a setting sun communicates a universal grief that words alone simply cannot reach. The visuals enhance the narrative so much that they literally build a bridge between strangers.
Which brings us to a final thought to wrap up this explainer. If visual symbolism can transform our deepest heartbreak into shared digital solace, what other silent scenes are shaping our online emotions today? It is just incredible to think about the absolute power of visuals in our emotional narratives. So the next time you find yourself deeply moved by a short video online, take a second to look past the text. Look for those silent scenes. Because quite often, it's not what's being said, but what is being visually felt that connects us all. Thanks so much for exploring this with me today, and hey, keep an eye out for the silent scenes in your own digital life.